I've got a bow here, and this is the only bow that I case. And the rest of them I just kind of throw them together and so forth and whatnot all. But this bow I made, and it's very delicate, and so I'm very, very protective of this piece of equipment. So I do provide it with a very fine case, so it doesn't, nothing happens to it. I'm kind of fussy about that. And so anyway, I'll show you. This is what I designed and bid out. It's kind of pretty, not too bad. It's got all the 21st design principles in it, and of course the string it. I want to be very, very cautious about how I string it and so forth, because it's delicate. So I want to be extremely cautious with this bow. I don't want to fool around with it. There we are. We got it. So I'd like to be pretty. As far as weight's concerned, yeah, it's sometimes a little heavy in one direction, so you just want to turn it around. It's a little bit lighter when you draw it this way. It's a little bit lighter. So this way, of course, now it's heavy, so it works better. But you want to be very careful with this. You want to be protected. You have to be very careful. Anyway, with some of the laws that we just covered and so forth, it gives you a basic idea of motion, how to set something in motion. If we're going to work and set an arrow in motion, according to the theories, the energy, how bows work. Let's start with how bows work. You've got a piece of equipment, and the bow is credited with being man's first attempt to store energy. And of course, it's our effort. Our effort is stored in the fact that we're pulling this back. Our energy is stored in this limb. We provide that, and that's, I don't care whether it's a crossbow or even you got a crank. We still provide the energy to go to work and crank that thing back. It's our energy. Compound, the same thing. We provide the energy to get that, and then to get it to relax. We relax, but because then it goes to work and holds that weight for us, and the cam action will go and continue our draw length, so it relaxes. So our energy, we provide that energy, but it's stored. It's stored in this limb. When we draw that back, it's storing energy in that limb. There it is. Now, what's the most important thing? What are we trying to do with a bow and arrow? Well, we're trying to hit something. What does that mean? That arrow must go to work and be aimed. That arrow has to be pointed at what we want to hit. It's got to be pointed. That's important. It's got to be pointed. Also, it has to be pointed with direction. It also has to be pointed up and down to allow for gravity. So that's what we have to overcome. That's what we have to think about when we're going to project this arrow to a target. So naturally, we put it on here. We'll talk about knockback. So what do we want to do? What do we have to do with that arrow? That arrow has to be set up and down to match the distance. It also has to be aligned. How do we want to align it? We want to have the energy, when we have the string, aligned exactly with the center of gravity of our mass. That's important. Any object you want to move. If I showed the guy an example. If I want to go work and move this desk, what do you generally do if you slide it? You generally push from here. If you really want to balance, you find the center point of that arrow, and you push on it from the, and now I got enough friction here I can't do it. But you look at for the center of its gravity and you push there. Any motion that you push here is actually applying weight, mass, and causing more friction. So the down energy is lost to motion going forward. That's simple laws of physics. So that's when you apply energy. So if I'm going to apply energy to this arrow, if I'm going to work and have a knocking point that's going to be too high, what am I doing? I'm probably going to apply too much friction area in this area. Also, when you apply energy to a moving mass, if it's a little off center, it causes the mass to go in a circle. That's what energy does when you transfer it. It wants to go in a circle. So therefore, what do we want to do? And you can hold with torque. Everybody, talk about first thing. Even one of the main shooters talks about lining the string with the center of the bow. No, align the string with the arrow. Because if you're aligning the string with if I align the string, I'm going to align the string with. You can maybe see this out and back. If I align it with the center of the bow, the arrow now will be pointing off to one side, so the arrow is being forced, the back of the arrow is being forced into the bow. But when I go over and do simply this little bit, when I do this, just that little bit, now the energy is in line with the arrow. It's not going to force the back of that arrow into the bow. So long bows especially should be held so that you can align, and you can get it aligned. Now I can shoot from down here, I don't care, as long as that string is aligned with the arrow. That's a long bow. Recurves, what do they do with recurves? They bend them back, they have a line here, they want the string to return to that groove. Therefore they cut this window in, and they go over and cut it past center, so you can get the arrow string alignment. So that proves it. It's compound. Take a compound. What do? They put a peep in the string. What are they doing? Aligning the string with the arrow. Exchanging the energy to the arrow with alignment. So when you're teaching anything else, that's the first thing, that's where archery starts from. Exactly this, right there. That's where archery starts from. What does my stance do to that? Well, if my stance changes over there, that means now I got to go work and move my body to get that alignment. So now, talk about stance, so forth. Well, stance, of course, the wider the base, the stabler the structure. Laws of physics. Same principle. So you can start here. When I do start here, and I come up here, get that alignment. Come back in and keep that alignment. And now you can work and see it differently by placing your head differently. If I go and I can have the alignment, right here I've got the alignment. I'm coming back into here. Now where do I see my string? Because of where my eye is, I can see the string way out here. But I want to get my head placed so that I can see that alignment. I want to get my head so I can see that alignment. I want to place that, so there it is. Now my eye has a good reference, right close to the arrow. Move that head a little bit, get that alignment. People that want to shoot outside, some people want to work and draw way outside here like this. Now, you can feel the alignment, but now you have to work to make adjustment and split aiming, like Howard Hill did. And I think his left eye was dominant. Not positive, but apparently it was dominant because he would aim at a ball here in order to hit the center of the target up there. He'd aim here to hit there. And apparently his left eye was dominant, and so forth. But he talked about,
it's like he's shooting parallel.
Yeah,
he talked about here, but he hits here.
That's right. And he was talking about having actually split vision. And also what Howard did was, I tried to trace it. I never knew Howard Hill. I never met the man. Bear, Pearson, all those guys, yes, it was part of my era. But I never met Howard Hill. But Howard Hill's book, Hunting the Hard Way, was my Bible when I started. And he does talk about aiming and aiming the arrow. And later on, a lot of people said, well, if you see the arrow, you're cheating. Well, we'll discuss that a little bit farther. But anyway, a lot of times what he claims that he was doing is anchoring up here on that ball, feeling that bone, and pressing into that bone. So he had an aiming reference. That becomes a reference. In getting that reference, now you can go to work and have that reference here solid. And when he wanted to shoot close targets, he did this because now you go to work and have almost the same feeling as you do shooting under your 3 fingers under your eye. You're moving that gap. You're changing the gap between your target and the arrow when you bend over. When you bend over like this, you're changing that distance in there. You're getting closer to the string. When I do this, I'm getting more separation between the eye and the arrow.
Because
more separation.
Your eye's over the arrow.
That's right. Yeah. But then you do bending over, the eye distance is closer. So that worked, therefore he could aim at close targets with the same picture as he did at a longer target at a certain distance. And he could have that spot. So that's all part of the fact that this bending over like this is he closed up the gap. This way here, he lengthened it for longer shots. And that's what it amounts to. The 3 fingers under, of course, is fantastic because generally that brings the arrow right up underneath that eye. You can get it right up there as close as you want, but there gives you a closer matter for the eye to judge distance. That's how that works for us. It works beautiful. So anyway, again, getting out of line here from what I really wanted to do, but it'll all come together. Because everything that I'm saying is that, guys, this arrow must be this. That's where archery starts from. Anything that you do from your stance, how you hold the bow, everything else now becomes another external force. We have this force. This force is mechanical. That we know what we want. We want that force going to be pushing as straight as we can on that arrow, on the center of gravity of that arrow. That we want to have. Okay, now when we have that set, we're also applying a force with our body. That becomes the other force that's going to affect the arrow. So when we go to work, our stance will affect it, how we hold the bow. If we hold the bow with a grip it like this, we get torque on it. Then we can get torque on it. We sure as heck don't want that because it's going to change our whole picture. So therefore, for this hand alignment, the best hand alignment you can get is simply by turning it at a 45-degree angle. Why? The ulna and the radius of this two bones here should be on top of each other. They should be aligned this way, not like this. Then we got a clearance problem. But if we take the hand by a 45, it helps us. A 45 helps us align this. That's why we want to grip the bow in this fashion, rather than this, because it turns that armor. Will it work the other way? Sure, it will turn the other way. Put an arm guard on, anybody can do it. But efficiency. If you want efficiency built into your form, you want a 45-degree angle. Also on your bow, tillers, we worry way too much about this stuff. Because at a 45, you're looking for the pivot point. You want to get this hand high wrist, low wrist. No, get it in there where it's comfortable. The wrist is a whole lot stronger when it's straight. It's not as strong in this position, it's not as strong in this position. The strongest length is when this bone to bone in line. That's where they become the strongest. So if we're looking for efficiency, that's what we want. We want to build our grip so we can get this nice straight alignment for bone alignment at a 45-degree angle. Now, in pulling that back on that, when we have it set, there's the hand right there. Now what it is, it's equal force. When you go and start drawing this arrow back, as far as force is concerned, in order to draw, I have to work and get an equal force. I have to have equal force this way, balance those two. If I quit drawing with this one, or move it like this one here I can have it static. That's called static. Being static is no movement into those muscles or that arm. That's a static position. Phasic means it's same tension, but it's moving with tension. So if I set up here, now I've got tension here, this will be phasic. Because there it is. I have tension, the tension builds, and as the tension builds, the tension should build equally in the others in this side over here. Equal balance to come into that, wherever you want to aim. Here, turn, whatever you want. Equal balance at all times. Why does snap shooting work so well? It's simply because that archer in snap shooting, he gets up here and he's building tension equally. He's building tension. Coming back in there, when he touches it, the tension is built totally equally, and when it does, he's releasing at that moment in time. And the balance is absolutely equal between the two halves. That's why snap shooting works so well. You go and come up here like this, you're building equal tension. Equal tension is building. It touches here and it just goes. Equal. Total balance. Now, the guy goes over and says, well, I want to aim though. I want to stop and aim. Okay, so he gets up here, comes back up to here. Now he stops. What happens is a change. He freezes up. There's a freeze, and he stops. So everything becomes static. Well, now he wants to try to get off. What's he going to pull? If he's going to pull, otherwise he creeps a little bit, and what's he going to get? He's going to get a left arrow. Believe me, every time. If you stop and you change up and relax, you've changed your body alignment. You haven't changed the alignment here, but you've changed the pressure that you're applying to the shot. When you change that pressure, you're in for a left arrow. Follow it, we have two arms. One is pushing, so-called pushing. One is pulling. I want to call it spread, because when you push, you're doing this. When you pull, you're doing this. But if I spread, I'm equal. I'm totally equal when I spread. I spread from here. I don't care where you're going to spread from, but you're equal when you spread. You're doing two things with both halves equally. And that's what you want to retain. That's archery. Because if you go to work and stop one, the other side is going to sympathize with it. That's the way our brain works. If we go and pause on this one, we pause on this one. If we push on this one, we're going to try to follow that action maybe with this one instead of pull. Spread. So I also, for setting the shoulder blade and shoulder arm and so forth, now I've gotten way ahead of myself because I love the archer so damn much. And everything I do turns to him because the bow is inanimate. That damn thing can't think. It applies itself just to the rules of physics. That's what it's doing. And you can look at that and design, and you can work and say where you want your weight, where you want your mass, how you want your curves. That's up to you guys. Whatever your ideas come from and so forth is fantastic. As long as you apply the rules of physics. Mass. Think of mass. What mass weighs, what it does, where you place it, where it is. Mass is the entire mass here. Strings, all that, that's mass. If you put on a heavier string on there, you're increasing the mass. Therefore, you got to move more weight, it's going to slow the bow down. If you get too much more mass. Put bumpers on here, silencers, you're just slowing the bow down. That's all you're doing. If you're worried about noise, brace the damn thing a little higher. Noise comes from string slap up here in this end area. That's where noise really comes from. That's where it is. And so, anyway, I'm getting ahead of my story all the time. You get myself off track here a little bit.
It's okay.
I'm trying to cover too many things at one time. Then back to this area principle. We all have shoulder sockets, all of us. We can say, well, one size does not fit all in archery. We're all different. Yes, we have different shapes and so forth. We all got shoulder sockets. We all got scapulas. Whatever your size is, whatever your shape is, what you're trying to do is get that humerus to go to work and center itself into the shoulder blade socket. When that thing is centered in there, that's where it's going to be its strongest. That's where the shoulder blade is going to be the most comfortable when it's in its center. If we're doing this, hey, that takes muscle to pull that thing up. It's energy that's not needed. That's going to fatigue us. It's going to tire us out. You say, well, use your back. It should drop back. Okay, you're dropping back. What are you doing then? You're dropping it back way too far. That's why I love the idea of spread, because it sets our shoulder blades automatically for us. If we just practice that and practice that until it becomes ingrained in us, in our deep thought patterns, that we do it without conscious thought. Then it becomes instinctive. And instinct is something that you can do which requires very little to no conscious thought. Then it becomes instinctive. That's the rule for it. But instinct has to be learned. So I like to start out here, off to the side of my target a little bit. And now, when I start to spread now, I'm spreading both of them equally. Look how those shoulders are just come into line. The two shoulders, now do it from the back, you can see the two shoulders, how they place themselves. You start out here, and it comes, the two shoulders just work right together. And the socket of this arm here fits right into the center socket. And I've got an arm that bends down and up, so don't look at that, because that's just the way I'm built. And so was Hoogerheid, the famous archer from way back in the 20s and into the 30s, Russ Hoogerheid, who was my idol. And because he had the same arm I did. I take a picture of him, and like he had the same type of arm. And he knew the arrows, he knew each arrow, where to hold it, where to point it by its mass. So he knew each arrow individually, where to place it. That's the way he shot and so forth. And he was probably our first true professional, but he was a guy come from behind, but he was quite an archer. I mean, I'll have to stop here for a minute. When I won the International Indoor Championship this pulls on me a little bit, I'll tell you. In 1968, I won the International Indoor Championship. There were 1,600 archers there, all shooting recurve and so forth. And it so happened that it ended in a tie between a guy named Searly and myself. And I had in the first round that we shot, I had 4 arrows out in the first half of that round. And I was using up all of the white, and I had 4 arrows out. At the end, just before the half, all of a sudden, my timing came together. My shot was balanced in between, and my arrows went like this. At that time, on that end, and from then on, I was clean that day. Searly shot a perfect that day. So, but he shot one behind me the first day. I had a 96 and he had a 95. And so the second day we started out, and I was up on target 1, and so was he, and so forth. And he went to work and shot a perfect. I dropped one, 299, so we tied. But I had it going because there it was, and that one that was out, they studied on that thing for about 2 minutes down there trying to decide whether it was in or out. It was that close. And so we got into the next end there and so forth, and I wanted to shoot first. I was on, I felt good. And the only thing I could feel that in my whole form, when I come up there, when they're right there, if there was a little touch right here, I says, that's in the center. And that's the way I was shooting that day. And just come in there, put it in there, and I held for about 7 seconds through my clicker and so forth. And the first arrow went right in the center, so did his. Second arrow, and then the crowd just went, that sort of crap. It was fantastic. Got up that next arrow, and mine almost hit the first one. His was just a little bit farther out. Next one I get up there, and the same thing. I they were almost smashing together down there, and his was out. Well, my next one, I ended up with a group down there. It was just about a little bigger than a silver dollar, all in the center, no problem. And after the tournament, of course, I'm down and getting interviewed and pictures taken, all this sort of stuff. And the editor of one of the magazines comes down and said, Jim, we've got a man here who'd like to meet you. Oh, fine, yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, come on, bring him down. And here this guy, tall, straight, long overcoat, black overcoat, comes walking down, and my eyes started to grow. Russ Hoogerhide? Russ Hoogerhide wants to meet me? Holy cow! That was just beyond. And here he came. Jim, he said, next year I'd like to shoot against you. And I said, wow, Russ, well, it wasn't to be because Russ died, but I still look up and I say, Russ, I was pretty damn good at 20 yards. You were fantastic at 100 yards. Let's meet at 60 and have this thing out. But I'll tell you guys, that was something. Yeah. That was really an experience. And so that's what I had to break from, to go to Russ Hoogerhide, because he was, to me, he was quite a character. I guess he did a lot of things and so forth, but he was quite a character. But he's also probably the truest professional. He did a lot of exhibition shooting for schools, taught a lot of places, different things, and probably our first really true professional. And so he was, if I had an idol, he was my idol, that guy. All right, back to work. And now we built the shoulder, and again I talk about spread. And what you're doing here is learning this spread principle, coming back so that you get timing between the two, and that automatically the shoulder goes, that shoulder bone just knows where it's supposed to go by doing this. Once that is learned, you can then go to work and draw from here. You can go work and do this, and that shoulder will go to that position because now you have taught it where to go. The brain remembers that. It knows what it's supposed to do. You don't have to think about it. But you do have to work on it until you've trained that brain and this shoulder, all these muscles, to go to that position. So start here in your training and do it up close. Anything you're trying to learn, anytime you're trying to accomplish something, do it up close, where aiming is not a big problem, so that you're working on what you're trying to train. Do it up close so you don't have to think, so you're right here like this and so forth, and get it. That's what you want. That's what you're looking for. So,
Hey, sure want to sit over there?
that was your choice.
Besides throwing up an
Who's got the apple?
apple.
Want to get an apple?
Get that lifesaver there.
Well, I'm taking a chance too. That's a nice new wall there. I got to be careful here what I'm doing. I got to think.